Hi guys, and welcome to a Christmas version of Stupid as the Norm, the channel where we demonstrate how to become a millionaire in 10 years whilst earning only minimum wage. And today is Christmas Day, so Merry Christmas to you all, and thanks very much for following me over the last 5 years. Incidentally, next week what I'll be doing is I'll give you an update as to where I am on my journey to become a millionaire in 10 years. We're a little over 5 years into it, so we've got a catch up and also some interesting and hopefully exciting news for you next year. But in this video I'm going to talk about how you can stack the odds in your favor. Well, as we know, as you go through life, there are no guarantees and no certainties. Life has a track record of kicking you in the stones when you're least expecting it. Billy Bingham, who is the most decorated SES soldier of all time, says that over the 200 different missions he went on with the SES, despite all the meticulous planning, none of them, not one of them, ever went to plan. And that's because life gets in the way, events happen, humans are involved, and so nothing goes exactly how we plan it. But what you can do though as you go through life is to stack the odds in your favor so you increase the likelihood of you achieving your goals. So if you want to separate yourself from the herd and become one of the 10% instead of part of the 90%, then here's a list of things that will help you stack the odds in your favor. The first is, don't buy stuff that devalues as soon as you've bought it. I've said many times that the only difference between the wealthy and the non-wealthy is that the wealthy own stuff that grows in value. And if there's two groups of people, one who owns stuff that grows in value and one that owns stuff that loses its value, then the gap between the two is going to grow every year. So don't buy stuff that devalues. In particular, don't buy stuff that devalues and do it on a credit card and not pay it off in full the next month. The next thing you do is set a little cash aside for emergencies. As I've said earlier, life is uncertain and it can throw things at you that you weren't expecting. I had one recently, the roof needed replacing on the first property I bought, and I didn't have the money to do it, so I had to borrow £10,000. Now, I was in that position because I didn't start till I was 57, and so I was forced to take risks. What happens is my bank account goes from sometimes £40,000 just before I buy a property, and then when I buy the property it goes down to nothing, and it leaves me very exposed for those occasions when I do need money, as it happened with this roof replacement. I had to borrow the money. The bugger is I just paid off £10,000 of the credit card bills from the very start, and it took me 3 years to do that. I paid them off 2 months earlier, then I had to go back to the Halifax and borrow the bloody money again, another £10,000 on a personal loan to cover that. If I had the money in the bank account, then I wouldn't have had to do that. But it all gone because I just make a house purchase. But it's something I want to change next year. When I bought my fifth property and I bought £500,000 of the property at that time, what I want to do is build up a little cushion of cash before I buy the sixth property, so I'm not in that position again. And it's something you should do as well, is to save up that cash. Now, how much you save is up to you. You might want to leave it as a year's salary. You might want to be a fixed sum like me. What I want to do is keep at least £20,000 in an ISA before I buy my next property, so I'm not that exposed again. But you could be different from me. You might not be as crazy as me and have to do it in 10 years. If you've got a longer time plan, then maybe you can just save, even if it's just 1 month for the salary, or 6 months or 12 months or whatever you feel most comfortable with, but make sure you have something put away. Next thing you want to do is open a stocks and shares ISA. You want it in an ISA because that way it's tax-free when you take it out. Doesn't matter how much you take out, it's always tax-free. This is what I do with my emergency fund. I haven't got much in there, as I say, because it's not so long ago I bought a house. But rather than keep my emergency fund in a bank, I put it in the ISA so that it gets about 8% growth every year. Now there's about £2,200 in there right now, but I drip feed it £100 every month. As I said in the previous item, what I want to do is get that up to £20,000 each year. I'm not there yet, but next year when I bought the fifth property and we write the book and hopefully that makes some extra sales and more money comes in, then that's what I want to do. But I put mine in an ISA. Some people like to have it in a bank account because they get easy access, but honestly I've had to take cash out of the ISA before and it took 48 hours to get it. So you know, it's as liquid as you probably need it. So I always put my emergency fund in an ISA. If you want to keep your emergency fund separate, that's fine. In that case, you ought to still be putting money in the ISA and building that up for some time in the future, cash-free income. And whilst this money's mounting up in your stocks and shares ISA, what do you do with it? Well, you're just going to watch it and maintain it until it gets to such time where you can move it into another vehicle that is producing more interest or more growth. So you're probably getting the stock market's growing about 8% right now a year. But what I do is I save mine up until such time that there's enough to have the deposit for another house, because if I can move it and buy a house, then the rent plus the capital growth is about 20% of my money. So I'm moving it from 8% to 20% income And that's what you should always be doing. So looking for extra ways, other ways where you can increase the growth, which you can accelerate the amount of money you're saving each month, which gets you faster and faster towards your target. And after you've done that, what's the next step? Well, to me, the next step is the hardest bit. It's just patience. It's the time thing. This is going to take a while. I always organize things so I became financially independent in 3 years, and I replaced my income in 5 years. But I had to do it. I was forced myself to do it by being stupid for so many years that I left it till I was 57 to start. So I took some risks that I wouldn't recommend taking looking back, and you don't have to take them. As I said, I've painted myself in a corner, so I've had to cram 20 years worth of work into 10 years to fix the mess I'd got myself in. But you don't have to do that. I think rather than do it and crush it into the 5 years I did, you can do it in 10 years. And I think that's a nice, easy way to do it. It still requires a lot of hard work. It still requires a lot of sacrifice, and it still requires a lot of patience. And as I said, that's the hardest thing to me. The gap between buying my 5th property to my 6th property is going to be about 12 months, but it's still 12 months of hard work, and it's still 12 months of taking the money that you've generated by working and then putting that in the bank, and taking some money from the properties and putting that in there, then perhaps refinancing a property and doing that. And it's a routine, but you can't rush it. There's no way you're going to do this quickly, but if you keep moving forward, keep making progress, then you're going to get there. So will all these steps guarantee your route to wealth? No, of course not. But what it definitely does is it stacks the odds in your favor. Stacks the odds in your favor that you're going to beat the house. And sometimes that little edge makes all the difference. So keep moving forward, keep going, keep making progress, and don't be stupid and don't be normal, guys. Be lucky.